But yeah, we got the big show this weekend. We got All In at Wembley, and I got some questions that I want to ask you guys because it is getting some heat because what Mongoose and I had talked about beforehand was that everything was kind of shot very quickly. And by shot quickly, like in the last week, they added like a ton of matches. So there hasn't been like a true build. And that's kind of like the way that the first All In was done. No angles, just matches. And to me, that's frustrating. And as a fan of AEW, what I loved in the beginning is that they build all of this out and they really took their time and things were done way in advance. So like you knew matches months in advance that was going to happen at a big show. And now they've converted into we're going to shoot all of these angles with like 1 to 2 weeks left, or as what Tony Khan even said today on the media call was that we're adding matches to the show tomorrow night and we're taking away stuff.
I was not adding that. We're changing the card.
Changing the card.
He said we're changing the card.
I didn't hear that.
I don't.
Yeah. So the 30-second rundown on that really quick, Andretti, is that on that media call today, he said that the card for Sunday is going to change, and some of it was thought out in advance, and some of it were curveballs that just got thrown in front of us. And to me, some of it in advance part when the show's 5 days away was, what are we doing?
Yeah, well,
go ahead though, John.
One thing I do know with that is that Ray Phoenix can't get into the UK for visa issues, so he's always
shit.
So
yeah,
who cares?
Yeah, that's all I know so far. So I'm sure that things are going to change, but
they don't got to be on every show.
For me, I'm frustrated because I wish that the card would have been laid out and we would have had angles and stories beforehand, because I feel like this is too big of an opportunity to waste with you have the largest crowd in wrestling history in years, and not even on American soil. You already outdid what we're going to talk about in the main event with SummerSlam 92. You already outdid them, and like it just feels like it's held together with like rubber cement, basically, is what it seems like they're holding this thing together with.
Well, so here's the big problem is that this show was announced and they sold those tickets, and that was in May or June 1. I think it was in May, actually, whenever they went on sale. Okay. But right away they had 36,000 people, and it was surpassing everything. And we had a show way back when, and we talked about how exciting it was that they were adding a Saturday show to now be able to tell double the stories for a 2.5 month build that is essentially 5 months of stories in 2.5 months to get to this mega show. And what's frustrating about it is that New Japan builds their shows the way that they do, but New Japan also is presented as sport, and AEW is not. Contrary to what we were told when they were formed, yes. They are not sport. They are sports entertainment, and that's okay. But if you're sports entertainment, then I should know your pay-per-view matches like after a pay-per-view almost. Do you know what I mean? And so we got through Forbidden Door, and the frustrating thing was on Dynamite last week, there were 8 attacks, I think, that set up matches. And look, dude, those 8 attacks, if the first one took place the Dynamite after Forbidden Door, and they were placed every other week, or do you know, like how was that?
spread out.
I have no problem with attacks, man, as long as you spread them out. And when they're all in the same show, if anybody watched one segment of Dynamite, I think you would have thought it was good. But if anybody watched all of Dynamite last week, you would have thought, oh my gosh, that was a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like it just that was a lot. I'm not saying good. I'm not saying bad. I'm saying a lot. And that's what's frustrating is that it's pro wrestling, which means that you literally get to pick who wins and loses and when people attack people and when people are suspended and when they're not suspended and all this other stuff. And you have Ricky Starks is suspended for 30 days and oh wait, we changed it. It's actually 4 weeks. Like
we're changing it mid-story.
And it's everything. It's everything that everybody didn't like about WWE when they quit watching WWE in that sense. Like when they came on, when AEW came onto the scene, their viewership was the lapsed fan of WWE. And they're falling into tropes and crutches and things that happen. Like to me, this is a guy that's too stretched, which is Tony. That's what I think anyways, is that all of a sudden there's his spoons in too many pots. And I know that there's an actual creative team and stuff, but that creative team was in place at the end of spring. And so with Danielson and with Chris Daniels and QT Marshall and with Jerry Lynn and with all these guys that are supposed to be in the room with him, like working through stuff, I don't think that they would have said it's a good idea to do 8 different attack angles on one TV 2 weeks before a show. And that's really frustrating, man. This all in show is going to be awesome. And All Out is going to be awesome. And full disclosure, I'm buying them both. So I guess I'm one of those marks that's like the loser that does it or whatever. We're going to watch them both and we're going to think that they're great shows. But that doesn't mean that the process to get there is the right one. And if the process to get there is not the right one, over the long term, you're going to be like, top shelf TNA. And I don't want them to be top shelf TNA. No. I want them to be 1997 WCW, meaning that it's true competition. Like I would like a 1 and a 1A. I don't want a 1 and a 2. Yes. And that's what's frustrating about this is that they're slotting themselves as being a 2. Well, to me, anyways.
Almost the way that I've been looking at it All In has been the same way that the WWE has treated those Saudi shows, where the tickets are already sold. You're already going to get all the money. There's no sense in blowing big storylines or big matches on a show that sold 90,000 tickets without a card being announced. You see what I'm saying? They didn't have to give those people the same thing that they would have had to have given a crowd somewhere else. It's the same exact principle of WWE with Crown Jewel or whatever the hell else they run in Saudi Arabia. Those cards are already full. They're getting their money. There's no reason to put big matches on those early Crown Jewel shows. You see, that's the way that I think that they just got to a point where they said, let's not give a crowd that's already sold and already coming these extra surprises. We don't have to do that.
I think my counter argument
really quick though. I was going to say counterpoint for me, and if it's the same, I'm sorry for thundering over you, John, that there's still a pay-per-view the week after. And so all those angles that you wanted to build for your sold show that you skipped over could have been for the show the week after. Like, it's not like they could have spent a summer building programs, and I don't feel like they did it. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, my thing is that this is their biggest opportunity that they've had since the inception of AEW to gain an audience that wants to see a spectacle, that wants to see the entertainment. They want to see if somebody else can do a WrestleMania style show. And this does not feel like a WrestleMania card. Or am I might be on the outside on that, but I don't think, for one, even though it is kind of storyline, I think it's moronic to have your tag team of MJF and Adam Cole, even though they're fantastic together. I love them. But I think that you're playing with fire, having them go out there and do a tag team match on a pre-show, knowing the fact that if shit goes wrong and somebody gets hurt, which seems to happen frequently in AEW, is that now you just fucked your main event in front of 81,000 people. So then you got to get super creative on the fly.
John, you're right there. And because the sold show thing, to back up Andretti, goes back to what we've talked about before. Because it's a sold show, your main event should have been MJF and Adam Cole winning the World Tag Team Championships.
Yeah.
Or losing them to FTR. So either if they weren't going to crown them on the highest viewed collision since the first show, which was only because of that tag team.
Yeah.
If they weren't going to win them, then they should have won them at this show. And then they could have broke up. Dude, if they wanted to fast track it, they could have broke them up on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And people would have bought the show the next Saturday or Sunday, whenever the show is. It literally could have been that easy. And that's what frustrated me about that, was that you have the best angle in your company, the best storyline in your company, they didn't run with. And look, the Bucks and FTR is going to be the best match on that show. That's a fact. You guys might think I'm wrong, but I'm telling you this, that you could write it down in pen. That's the best match on that show. Great match. But the money match would have been MJF and Adam Cole versus FTR. They win the titles, and then if you wanted them at all out, then do your split on Wednesday, and people would have bought the freaking tickets, man. That's what frustrates me about that, is that pre-show thing is playing with fire, just like you said. And I don't understand why you don't run with your hottest thing, especially whenever they already had ready-made. Everybody wants to cheer MJF, and now we're going to turn him heel because that's what we had in the cards. Like, it frustrates me that they didn't Sami Zayn this. Do you know what I mean? Sami Zayn went from being a 3-week thing to main eventing at Montreal against Roman Reigns. Like, we could have told this story better. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's because the fans loved it, man.
There's no incentive, and that's the whole problem with that whole promotion, is incentive. There's no incentive for them to make money. There's no incentive for them to tell storylines that make logical sense, and to keep people along for the ride, and to give fans a validation and a payoff, even if it's just psychological, for being invested in your product. They don't do that. It's not very good.
Well, here's the thing, then, is they used to. Like, they actually did. And that's what's most frustrating, is that we watched MJ before AEW was a thing. We watched MJF buddy up to Cody on Being the Elite. Loved it. Thought, this guy's a snake.
Yeah.
And then we get through and we go to that Full Gear show where MJF throws in the towel on Cody, and now it's Cody and MJF. So there was an 8-month storyline where we knew from the second we saw MJF on the first Being the Elite show to when they actually had TV, that Cody and MJF was going to be a thing. And so the people that knew. And that's what, so I think that I'm echoing your point, is that, like, part of the great thing about being a wrestling fan is when you fantasy book and you get something right, you feel smart, even though, like, who cares? But, like, you feel smart. And so we can high five each other on a podcast, or you can say, or people can say, like, oh, so-and-so is wrong, but I knew it. Like, that's what's really cool about being a sport that is a work, is that trying to guess it. And when you guess it right, it's a good thing. And when more people guess it right than wrong, it's a better thing. Look at New Japan for that, dude. The first Naito losing to Jeff Cobb in the best Naito match that I've seen in over a year, I thought, oh my gosh, Naito looks so good. Well, then guess what Naito did? Kept winning and winning and winning. And then all Naito did was win the damn tournament. Like, that's the way you do this, man. You get to make up the results. That's what's frustrating.
It's frustrating. You hit the nail on the head, is that you get to make up the outcome. So if you've got an outcome, like we were saying earlier, and look, we all fantasy book, and that's just what it is because we're fans of it, and every fan's get a fantasy book. But if we're working towards Yota Tsuji and Tetsuya Naito at Wrestle Kingdom at the beginning of 2025, if we're working towards that match to crown Yota Tsuji, then we know that that's where we're going, right? The end destination is that match. So what do we need to do between now and then? What are the signposts along the way between now and then? We've got, a year and a half to plan this out, right? To get to where we want to be and tell this great story about two faction members who are colliding because they both think they should be the head of the faction and they should be the world champ, right? That's the story. That's all we need to have, right? How do we get there? And you just build it from the end backwards to where you want to be, just like it would be if we were putting together a fucking game plan to go play on Friday night. It's the same damn thing, right? So what's really frustrating for me about this stuff today, I didn't even hear this about Tony Khan today. I didn't even hear that. But what's really frustrating for me as a fan is, dude, you've had these tickets sold for months. You've known All Out is coming for months. You've got back-to-back monumental shows that are right on top of you, but you've had months to plan this. And where is it? Where is the planning? It's like you said, why was there not a big confrontation where MJF and Adam Cole beat the Young Bucks or whoever they end up beating? They get a #1 title shot. They go in there. They almost beat FTR. They turn on each other, whatever the hell it ends up being, right? And it falls apart. And now these guys have actually hated each other the entire time, which is what it gets revealed. And then they're the main event at All Out, right? Why is this so? I hear smart people say this all the time. I hear people like Lance Storm say this all the time. I think I've even heard Les Thatcher say this before. We make this too complicated. And it's the same damn thing that we've done with football games and baseball strategy and all the things we've ever done. You saw the Dodgers, in their own heads when they lost that World Series because they couldn't get the metrics out of their own head. They got in their own way. How many football coaches have the three of us known that can't get out of their own way? Dave wants that. Guy would never change his game plan. He would go into a game and say, our game plan is going to be to run the ball. And they go in there and they run the ball and they get their ass kicked. And it's halftime and the other coaches are like, are we going to make any changes? He's like, no, we're going to stick to our game plan. Dude, what are you talking about? You can't do that. You can't do that. You've got to be able to adjust. You've got to be able to forecast and adjust. And it just seems like Tony Khan's not able to do that.
Well, it doesn't plan.
I'm sorry, really quick. I just want one more time, John, before I'm going to let you go. I'm not letting go. I watch all these shows, and so do you guys. Those reactions for Cole and MJF as a tag team, just ride the wave. It ain't that hard, dude. It ain't that hard. Just ride the wave. And when it hits its crescendo and it starts to, then break them up. Go ahead. That's all I had to say. That's what makes me mad, is that stop fighting your fan base. There's no reason to.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because everything that you said, Andretti, about that's a really simple thing that they could have laid out. It's very simple storytelling where they're a team. WWE is the masters of putting people together to break them up. And AEW just is like, they can't. It's so fucking frustrating because it's such an easy story. They could have broken them up. They've teased it too many times. That's almost the thing with me and AEW right now, is they tease too many things for too long. They dick tease you too long until you've already you don't even got hard on anymore. You're just right.
The problem, John, is that there's some of that. Like, we still have not seen Swerve versus Keith Lee. We still haven't seen it. But then we have in one of the best angles they ever did, and I mean this, from the start of the company, was Swerve and AR Fox going to Buddy Wayne's training facility and killing Nick Wayne. That was great. That was great television. So what do? Oh, we announced Sting and Darby Allin versus AR Fox and Swerve in a coffin match, which you think, oh, dude, how great would it be if Buddy Wayne, or excuse me, Buddy, RIP Buddy in a coffin match, Jesus. If Nick Wayne comes out of the coffin and murks these guys, right? Dude, Nick Wayne's back last week, and now we have Nick Wayne and Darby versus AR Fox and Swerve on Dynamite this week.
Giving away
what? What? Like, dude, what? What? It's what? Why?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. Because it's booked by a person who has flashes of creative brilliance, and then it burns out of his mind really quick, and he can't control himself, and he can't control his impulses, and he moves on to the next thing without any payoff.
Yeah.
That guy can't be the day-to-day booker. Now, maybe he's the long-term guy who says, "I want to see this and I want to see that," just like a CEO. But he should not be the guy who lets anything out.
Well, you know what, Andretti? Here's the thing: is that listening to Cornette and Pritchard as long as I did, which both guys certified workers, so God only knows what they say, what's true and what's not. But the thing is if you cross them both over, that the deal was that the WWF and WWE's rise was, here's Vince's idea. We're going to meet at the pool in Florida. And so I want Hogan and Savage. Get me there.
Yeah.
I want Brett and Shawn. Get me there. I want Stone Cold and The Rock. Get me there. And those meetings at the pool was you had Pritchard and Cornette and those guys and Patterson. Yeah. Like those guys there to get you there.
And look, I was about to say there's no Pat Patterson, there's no Bruce Pritchard. That's bullshit. There are people there who know exactly what to do and how to get there. We're just not listening to these people. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I was saying to Bake before we got on here that John. I know John and Dave had a podcast falling out where John gave up on him. But I told him. Well, the thing is though is that I know that he was getting frustrated because of just spinning in circles about all this stuff after Brawl Out, but what I've heard from Dave, especially these last 3 months, has been the best thing that I could have wanted to hear, which was, Tony, do your job, bro. Like, people in the locker room aren't happy, and it's your fault. Like, he says in his just 7,000 words to say 5 way of saying, buddy, this should have been handled in May of 2022.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't
and that's the truth, is that it's right. It should have been handled in May of 2022. Like,
you listen to I don't listen to The Observer very much. I listen to Dave, I listen to Brian maybe like once every 3 weeks. But did you listen to Victor Souza, I think his name is, and Les Thatcher?
So dude, last week they let Tony have it. And here's the thing is, they said when he did good, and I love when you say what someone does good right before you get the shovels out. And they should have, man. Like, look, brother, you wrestling fans are rooting for your company. And the only reason that they're not still with you is your fault, because you have abandoned what was your initial game plan. And in the meantime, the WWE has found themselves good long-term storylines that people can get behind. Those WWE shows, by and large, aren't very good. But you know what is good? The Bloodline, the Judgment Day, and then a couple of things along the way.
Cody.
The Gunther, Sheamus, Edge. So they have just enough to supplement it that people keep coming back. And so you've now run off as AEW, the lapsed fan who says, oh, I heard WWE's getting better. And if I'm a WWE person, or used to be, and I tuned in the Backlash and I watched that Backlash show, well, brother, I'm locked in. If I was the lapsed WWE fan and I watched that Quebec show, the Montreal show with Sami Zayn, I'm back in. They've been their own worst enemy because they've told their worst stories while WWE's told their best, and that's the way this goes too. It's an ebb and flow thing.
An unbelievable amount of talent in AEW that covers up all those foolishness, and that's why it's so frustrating for us as fans because, as you said, we're going to watch All In and we're going to watch All Out, and when you just view those in a vacuum, right? You're gonna if like I'm talking 10 years from now, right? 10 years from now, whenever we log into whatever platform AEW has, and we go back and we watch this All In show, we're gonna be like, holy cow, that was unbelievable, dude. All Out was unbelievable. But that's the thing about them, is that it's almost like they're really good at building these like vacuum shows where when you go back or you watch it just in the moment, it's so fantastic. But when you try to invest over the course of time in the build up to those shows, it's so insane. It's illogical.
Yes.
And it is frustrating beyond belief. But in the same token, like we're gonna watch both of those shows, and we're gonna be like, this is fantastic. And these guys are unbelievable talents, they're the best in the world at what they do, this and that. And then we're gonna turn it back on Dynamite the following Wednesday, and we're gonna be like, why am I watching this? Why am I watching Dynamite? Like, I could never watch Dynamite or Rampage again, and still probably be a lot happier in my life just watching the pay-per-views.
Yeah. That's really quick, John. That's 2018 WWE.
Yeah,
like that's what it was. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. My thing is that they've had a lot of goodwill with the fans, that they rode that wave for 2 years, and then I don't know what happened in 2021, end of 2021, beginning of 2022. I don't know what happened. I don't know if that is related to Mr. Phil getting involved. I don't know what that is, but ever since that point, and listen, I'm the biggest CM Punk mark that we got here on this show right now, but ever since then, things have gone downhill to the point where I don't care to even watch Dynamite anymore. I only want to watch Collision, and you're never going to catch me watching Rampage ever again because they've shown
John, dude, Collision sucks. Like if Collision is going to be what Collision is, I got news for you. I watched the last 2 episodes. I don't care about a good main event if I'm watching 6 squash matches on every show.
I don't mind it. I actually think Collision's better than Dynamite.
Well, dude, you say that now, but when you continue to see Action Andretti getting killed by Miro, you're not going to keep watching. No, you won't. And like those 30-minute main events is what is keeping people on. And that first segment with Punk as the Golden Vampire, that was awesome. That was awesome. I give him that. But you can't tell me that you're going to keep wanting to see Miro just give the game over to, Griff Garrison.
Do something with
you're not. Yeah. What's that?
Do something with him other than just squash people. We already know he can squash people. He squash
Miro is working with Hobbs. We're going to get a good match.
He is working with Hobbs, but the problem with that, John, was that he had programs pitched to him where he was going to need to take a loss, and he said, "Homie, don't play that."
I should.
Well, you say why should he, dude? Because you're getting paid money to lose.
I know.
Look, man, you want to go back
That's
to
the thing is
2021.
you ain't it. Like, you are only Superman because we wrote on paper Miro goes over. Like, if we have a shoot fight competition, Bart Gunn wins.
Look, you want to go back to 2021 and see where it was? I'll give you a quick rundown of what it was. It's Phil Brooks, it's Collision, it's Rampage, it's buying ROH, it's all of those things. It's a bloated roster where you keep letting people tell you to bring their friends in and pay them to be on top. When you can't, not everybody can play for the Celtics. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to every high school basketball player out there. You're not going to play for the Boston Celtics. Only two of you are ever going to do that, you know. But like, that's the thing, man. There's not one issue. It is a series of issues that have gone out of control, and it's just an accumulation of several of those things. That's what happened.
Yeah, but
and in addition to all of that, you don't listen to anybody. Right. So that the worst one of all is the fact that you don't take advice.
Right. But you should take our advice, and you should watch all of that. To be said, you should watch All In this weekend because it will be
awesome.
It'll be a big show.
John, I can't wait for the show. and here's the thing, man, is that I and you, not Andretti, because Andretti's a real one, but you and I, John, we watched Great Balls of Fire 2018. Yeah, you know what I mean? I did a whole bunch of hate watching, brother, and it is these criticisms aimed at AEW is only because I love pro wrestling and I don't want you to suck. Like, I want you to be really good, and you were really good. All In 2021 will literally go down. All In 2021 might be the best wrestling show I've ever seen. And I mean that. It might be the best wrestling show I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that every show needs to equal that, but it's a shame that that was the peak. I was hoping that was going to be the thing that really, oh my gosh, here we are, true competition. And it wasn't. It was the crescendo, and then the waves started to crash. It sucks. Well, that's what sucks about that.
Look, it's going to be fun, and we're going to have a good time watching that. But we should.
I do want to say that Danielson breaking his arm sucks, because the co-main event for this show was supposed to be Omega and Danielson, and the only match that probably could have been better than Omega and Ospreay 1 or 2 could have been Omega and Danielson in front of 8,000 people with 35 minutes.
Yeah.
And so that sucks. And that's not their fault. That sucks. That does suck.
One thing I will say about AEW that's ruined a lot of their shows is that they have way too many injuries, and I don't know why that is. But they
do dumb shit on free weekly TV. That's why.
There's too many injuries that have ruined too many other shows. That actually has not happened to WWE in a while. So knock on wood for everybody else. But, we don't want to see people hurt. We want to see everyone healthy. But I don't know. Watch All Out. Buy All In.
Really quick, before we wrap this up, the Uncle Dave theory with this is that when guys would go to Japan in the early 90s, so when you'd have your Terry Gordons and those kinds of guys that would go to Japan, what happened was
40.
Jeez, Gordon. Yeah, Terry Gordy. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Your Terry Gordys. Your Scott Hall was trying to go over there. Hogan did a couple of runs. So those types that would go over to Japan for those little money-making runs is that when you were doing Dr. Death, Steve Williams was another big one that would go to Japan and make money. The thing was that they would have these like 6 weeks on and then 3 weeks off kind of like deals. And so when they got to the end of that 6 weeks, they kill each other because they'd be like, I got 3 weeks off. You know what I mean? So we can go balls out of here. We can have this game changer match. And the problem is with the AEW schedule, even though it's only once per week or twice per month or whatever, that mentality sort of sneaks in there, and you're taking bumps that you would never take on weekly TV because of that. Do you know what I mean? So because you're not working 4 days a week, like just to make your bills paid or whatever. And that's a really interesting way to think about that, is that even though that schedule is so enticing for a lot of people, that because that schedule is so enticing, you think I have a week off, right? 2 weeks off, right? 3 weeks off, that you're taking bumps you shouldn't have. And that's what ends up with the injuries.
Yeah. Agreed. But yeah, all of that to be said, you should buy All In, because it's the biggest show, the biggest crowd in pro wrestling that's been in years, since at least WrestleMania 32. That was the 101,000. But this is bigger than the SummerSlam 92 show that we are going to be main eventing with. So we encourage everyone to buy All In and enjoy yourself, because it is going to be a spectacle. And we buried them a lot, and we didn't really preview any of the show other than the fact that we love AEW. We want AEW to be better, and they just continuously are proving us that they don't know what the hell they're doing.